I am.
Well,
If you get to the point where you answer the question I've asked you.
No one's interested in your juvenile questions about some heckler. Focus on the really important things. Do your job properly.
I see. We're starting the new year with a message of peace and goodwill, are we?
A ringleader of a notorious grooming gang was employed by Oldham Council. Let that sink in. While children were being exploited, one of their abusers was on the public payroll. This isn't just a failure of justice, it's a betrayal of the highest order. Yet, when Richard Tice tried to address this on Sky News, he was met with deflection and dismissal. Why are some of the UK's most powerful institutions so reluctant to face this issue head-on? The answer might be more sinister than you think. Richard Tice's recent appearance on Sky News was nothing short of explosive. The Reform UK leader came armed with a mission: to shine a spotlight on the grooming gang scandal that's been conveniently swept under the rug. But what he encountered was a wall of resistance that would make even the most seasoned politicians' heads spin. As Tice attempted to steer the conversation towards this critical issue, host Trevor Phillips seemed to have an entirely different agenda. It was like watching a bizarre game of conversational dodgeball, with Phillips ducking and weaving around the topic as if his life depended on it.
Very good morning to you. Well, the simple answer is yes, we absolutely can. Look at where we are in the polls, Trevor.
I haven't asked you a question yet.
We're in the initial inquiry into the most horrific scandal. That's what tens of millions of people are focused on. That's what your viewers want to hear about.
The frustration was palpable as Tice tried to make his point, only to be met with questions about completely unrelated matters. But here's the kicker. This isn't just a one-off incident. Sky News has a track record of tiptoeing around the grooming gang scandal like it's a landmine in a field of daisies. It's a pattern that's become impossible to ignore. And it begs the question, what's really going on behind the scenes? The reasons for Sky News' reluctance to tackle this issue head-on could be a tangled web of legal, social, and political pressures. Are they afraid of lawsuits, worried about being labeled with the dreaded R word? Or is there something even more sinister at play? Whatever the case, their silence speaks volumes. And let's not forget what's at stake here. While major media outlets play this game of see no evil, hear no evil, real victims are suffering in silence. The public is demanding answers.
Side the Tories and the Labour. So yes, the simple answer is the people want reform. We need root and branch reform in this country.
Okay. And do you plan to expel them? Answer yes or no, and then we can get on to the things you want to talk about.
It's irrelevant, Trevor. What?
Crying out for a national inquiry into this scandal. But how can we expect justice when those with the power to amplify these voices choose to mute them instead? The extent of Sky News' failure to report on grooming gangs is staggering. It's not just a gap in their coverage, it's a gaping chasm that threatens to swallow the truth whole. This isn't journalism, it's a masterclass in selective blindness. But here's the real kicker. Sky News isn't alone in this media blackout. As Tice's confrontation with Phillips so clearly demonstrated, this problem goes far beyond just one news network. It's a systemic issue that's rotting the very foundation of our media landscape. And if we don't start demanding better, who will?
Gang scandal, but you've
hang about. Let's get to that. Let me ask you.
Well, that's the most important issue of the day,
if we may.
Then
we can get on to the things you want to talk about. Have you found those two? Have you found the people who heckled Lee Anderson?
The shocking revelation about Shabir Ahmed's employment at Oldham Council has left many questioning the very foundations of our child protection systems. Ahmed, the ringleader of a notorious grooming gang, wasn't lurking in the shadows. He was working as a welfare rights officer, a position that put him in direct contact with vulnerable individuals. It's a betrayal so profound, it's hard to comprehend. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. Multiple concerns were raised about Ahmed, including his arrest for sexually assaulting children. Yet somehow these red flags were ignored or swept under the rug. The police, who should have been the first line of defense, failed to inform Oldham Council about Ahmed's criminal activities. It's as if the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and vulnerable children paid the price. This isn't just a case of one bad apple slipping through the cracks. An independent review has exposed serious multiple failures by both Greater Manchester Police and Oldham Council. It's a damning indictment of the very institutions we trust to protect our children. Child protection procedures were disregarded, leaving some children to fend for themselves against predators like Ahmed. How many other councils across the UK are harbouring similar secrets?
No one's interested in a convicted criminal, Trevor. We're talking about the most horrific
I'm interested
scandal.
in your members. Have you
Focus on the really important thing. Do your job properly.
I see. We're starting the new year with a message of peace and goodwill, are we?
The implications of this institutional negligence are far-reaching. The review found that the quality of casework for at-risk children was very poor across the board. It's not just Oldham, it's a systemic issue that's rotting the core of our child protection services. And let's not forget the structural flaw in the multi-agency system set up to tackle child sexual exploitation. This flaw allowed perpetrators like Ahmed to continue their abuse unchecked, evading justice while their victims suffered in silence. Maggie Oliver, a former GMP detective turned whistleblower, didn't mince words when she called out the catastrophic failings of the police force. Her words should send shivers down our spines. If those tasked with protecting the most vulnerable in our society are failing so spectacularly, what hope is there? The extent of these systemic failures in child protection is staggering. It's not just one council, one police force, or one case. It's a pattern of negligence that spans across institutions and regions. How many more Shabir Ahmeds are out there, hiding in plain sight, protected by a system too broken to stop them? The media's silence on these issues and the institutional failures we've uncovered are two sides of the same coin. Both represent a betrayal of trust, a failure to protect the vulnerable, and a reluctance to face uncomfortable truths.
If you get to the point where you answer the question I've asked you.
No one's interested in your juvenile questions about some heckler. Trevor,
said Tommy Robinson should be freed.
Trevor, are you going to ask questions about the most important, horrific scandal?
Yes, I am. But
it's time we started asking some hard questions about who's really being protected here, and at what cost. The media's silence on grooming gangs and the failures in child protection services are two sides of a deeply troubling coin. It's a perfect storm of negligence, where those meant to protect and inform have spectacularly dropped the ball. And let's be clear, this isn't just about a few bad apples. We're talking about a systemic rot that's been allowed to fester unchecked. But here's the thing. Change is possible, and it's desperately needed. Grassroots organizations are stepping up, supporting victims and raising awareness where the mainstream media has failed. They're showing us that community involvement is key to breaking this vicious cycle of silence and abuse. It's time for the rest of us to follow their lead. The media needs a serious wake-up call. We need reporting that prioritizes victim voices, not sensationalism. We need transparency, not cover-ups. And most importantly, we need journalists who aren't afraid to ask the tough questions, even if it means ruffling a few feathers in high places. As for our child protection services, the current state of affairs is nothing short of a national disgrace. We need a complete overhaul, with accountability at every level. No more passing the buck, no more turning a blind eye. It's time for real, tangible change. The victims of these heinous crimes have been silenced for far too long. They deserve justice. They deserve support. And above all, they deserve to be heard. It's high time we broke this conspiracy of silence and faced the uncomfortable truth head-on. Anything less is a betrayal of the most vulnerable in our society.